he rose from the chaos to build an empire that would last for centuries. He was the mastermind behind the Roman Empire, the man who redefined power itself. From a fractured republic to the world's most formidable force, Augustus didn't just lead Rome, he transformed it. His name would become synonymous with greatness, and his legacy would echo through history. This is the story of Augustus, the first emperor and the empire he built. Gaius Octavius was born on September 23rd, 63 BC, into a wealthy but not noble family in Rome. His father, also named Gaius Octavius, was a respected senator, though not a member of the patrician elite. His mother, Attia, was the niece of Julius Caesar, making Octavian an important figure by birthright, even if his family's influence was limited. Despite their modest wealth, young Octavius was raised with a strong sense of discipline and ambition. From an early age, he was aware that Rome's political world was a place of intrigue and danger, shaping the man he would become. As a child, Octavian was exposed to the competitive nature of Roman society, where political connections and personal charisma often meant the difference between success and failure. He was educated in the traditional Roman manner, learning Latin and Greek, philosophy, and oratory. These lessons would serve him well in the future, as they molded his skills in rhetoric and governance. However, despite these advantages, his path to power would not be easy. Octavius had to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics, a world where alliances were often fleeting and the stakes were deadly high. At the age of 18, Octavian's life took a dramatic turn when his great-uncle Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. Caesar had no legitimate children, and Octavian, who had been adopted by Caesar in his will, now stood to inherit the entirety of his wealth and political legacy. The adoption, made posthumously, made Octavian Caesar's legal heir, despite his young age and relative inexperience. By this stroke of fate, the once ordinary young man found himself thrust into the heart of Roman political life, now known as Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus. The death of Julius Caesar, however, was far from a simple inheritance. Octavian's adoption meant that he now had the formidable challenge of stepping into the very shoes of a man whose influence had been both vast and controversial. Caesar's rise to power had turned him into a near-absolute ruler, and his assassination had sparked widespread political chaos. Octavian, a teenager with little experience, was now tasked with not only avenging Caesar's death but also securing his own position in the Roman world. For Octavian, this adoption was both a blessing and a curse. He inherited the wealth, political connections, and the revered name of Julius Caesar, but he also inherited the enemies and the uncertainties that came with Caesar's rule. His rise to power would not be easy, as those who had conspired against Caesar would not easily accept his heir. Octavian's path was marked by political and military turmoil, but his sharp mind and calculated moves would set him on a trajectory to transform Rome forever. The assassination of Julius Caesar on March 15th, 44 BC, left Rome in turmoil. Caesar had been more than just a ruler. He had been a symbol of Roman power, and his death created a massive vacuum that threatened to engulf the Republic. The Ides of March, as it came to be known, marked the end of Caesar's reign and the beginning of a bloody struggle for power. For Octavian, it was the moment that thrust him into the center of the political storm, as he now had to contend not only with Caesar's death but also with the political forces eager to shape Rome's future. At the time of Caesar's assassination, Octavian was undergoing military training in Apollonia, located in Illyria. He had no idea of the conspiracy that was brewing in Rome, nor of his adoptive father's fate. Upon hearing the news of Caesar's death, Octavian immediately understood that his own life would be irrevocably changed. Caesar had been his mentor and protector, and now Octavian was left not just to mourn his death, but to navigate the dangerous political landscape left in its wake. His initial reaction was one of deep grief, but it quickly turned to determination. Despite his youth, Octavian knew that the political opportunities Caesar's death presented could not be ignored. The death of such a powerful leader created a rift in Rome that was quickly filled by the most ambitious. Octavian's first move was to return to Rome, where he was faced with the hostile forces of Caesar's assassins, led by Brutus and Cassius. These men had killed Caesar in the name of preserving the Roman Republic, but their actions plunged Rome into chaos. Octavian realized that to avenge his adoptive father's death and secure his own position, he would need more than just political will. He would need military power. He began to gather allies, slowly building his political and military support, knowing that the path ahead would be filled with betrayal and bloodshed. Mark Antony, Caesar's closest ally and general, and Marcus Lepidus, another supporter of Caesar, were both powerful figures with whom Octavian needed to work. In 43 BC, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus formed the Second Triumvirate, an official political body with extraordinary powers. The triumvirs were charged with avenging Caesar's death and restoring order to Rome, but their alliance was one born of necessity rather than friendship. The formation of the Second Triumvirate gave Octavian a much-needed military and political advantage, but it also came with complications. Antony, a seasoned general, was a formidable rival, and Lepidus, though less ambitious, was a strategic ally for both men. The triumvirs, with their combined forces, quickly moved against those who had conspired to kill Caesar, including Brutus and Cassius. The political atmosphere in Rome was tense, as each of the triumvirs sought to solidify their own position while appearing to work together for the good of the Republic. The creation of the triumvirate gave Octavian the power he needed to challenge his enemies, but it also set the stage for future conflict. Though the triumvirs held supreme power, they were not of one mind. Octavian's ultimate goal was not just to avenge Caesar, but to secure his own legacy as the ruler of Rome. Antony, on the other hand, was determined to maintain his own power and influence, while Lepidus, caught in the middle, would soon find himself sidelined. Octavian, ever the strategist, knew that the alliance would be temporary, and that the time would come when he would have to turn against his fellow triumvirs. Despite the uneasy partnership, the Second Triumvirate quickly became an unstoppable force. The triumvirs moved swiftly to defeat Caesar's assassins, culminating in the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. Octavian's leadership during this period marked the first true military victory of his career, and it was a clear sign that he was no longer just Caesar's heir. He was becoming a powerful player in his own right, one who would soon claim Rome as his own. But as the triumvirs solidified their power, Octavian's eyes were already on the future, and he knew that the road to sole control would be long and fraught with challenges. The formation of the Second Triumvirate was a defining moment in Octavian's life. It provided him with the tools to avenge Caesar's death and begin his ascent to power, but it also brought him into conflict with the very people who had once been his allies. The political landscape of Rome was shifting, and Octavian was determined to be the one who would stand at the top. His rivalry with Antony and his eventual betrayal of Lepidus would set the stage for his ultimate victory and the birth of the Roman Empire. The Battle of Philippi in 42 BC was a defining moment in the history of Rome, and for Octavian, it marked his first major military victory. The battle was fought between the forces of the Second Triumvirate, Octavian and Antony, and the army of Brutus and Cassius, the leaders of Caesar's assassins. For Octavian, this battle was not just about vengeance. It was about solidifying his power and proving his military capability. The triumvirs' victory at Philippi eliminated the last significant threat to their control over Rome, but it also marked the beginning of a rivalry between Octavian and Antony that would eventually tear the triumvirate apart. The battle itself was a brutal and bloody affair, fought in two stages. Despite being outnumbered, the forces of Octavian and Antony managed to defeat the armies of Brutus and Cassius, forcing the two leaders to commit suicide. The victory was a crucial moment for Octavian, as it marked the first time he had been in command of a large-scale military campaign. It also cemented his reputation as a leader capable of winning battles and commanding respect on the battlefield. However, the aftermath of Philippi was not without its complications. While Octavian and Antony celebrated their victory, the death of Brutus and Cassius did not bring lasting peace. The political fallout from the battle continued to affect the dynamics of the triumvirate. Octavian's power grew, but so did Antony's ambitions, particularly his desire to control the eastern provinces of Rome. The seeds of their rivalry had been sown at Philippi, and the conflict between them would eventually lead to the breakdown of their alliance. Despite their shared victory, the tensions between Octavian and Antony were palpable, and each man's growing desire for dominance would set the stage for the final confrontation that would decide the fate of Rome. The Battle of Philippi was a pivotal moment in Octavian's rise to power. It marked the beginning of his transformation from a young and inexperienced heir into a political and military force to be reckoned with. The victory at Philippi helped to eliminate the threats to Octavian's position, but it also made clear that his path to power would not be easy. His alliance with Antony was fragile, and the winds of change were already blowing. The stage was set for a final showdown that would determine the future of Rome. The road to sole rule was long and fraught with challenges, and for Octavian, it was marked by both strategic brilliance and ruthless ambition. Although the triumvirate had given him power, it also placed him in a delicate position. He had shared power with Antony and Lepidus, but it was clear that each of them had different visions for Rome's future. Octavian's ambition was undeniable, and he was determined to become the sole ruler of the Roman world. The political maneuvering that followed the Battle of Philippi set the stage for his final rise to power. Octavian's first move was to eliminate Lepidus, who had become a weak and ineffective member of the triumvirate. Lepidus's political influence had waned, and he was soon sidelined, leaving Octavian and Antony as the two remaining power players. The two men, once allies, now found themselves in direct competition for control over the Roman Empire. Antony's association with Cleopatra of Egypt further alienated him from Octavian, who saw this as a direct challenge to his own power. The growing rivalry between the two men was inevitable, and it was only a matter of time before their personal and political ambitions would collide. The final confrontation came in 31 BC with the Battle of Actium. The battle, fought off the coast of Greece, was the culmination of years of tension and rivalry between Octavian and Antony. It was a naval battle that would determine the fate of the Roman Empire. Octavian, with his superior strategy and more loyal forces, decisively defeated Antony and Cleopatra's fleet. Antony and Cleopatra both committed suicide, and Octavian emerged as the undisputed ruler of Rome. The victory at Actium marked the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. With his rivals vanquished, Octavian now stood as Rome's sole ruler. He would go on to take the title of Augustus, marking the start of a new era in Roman history. His rise to power was complete, and he had proven himself as a master of political strategy and military might. The road to sole rule had been long and difficult, but Octavian's ambition, determination, and ruthless execution had secured him the throne of Rome. In 27 BC, Octavian stood before the Senate, a moment that would mark the transformation of Rome. He offered to relinquish the extraordinary powers he had held, claiming that he no longer needed them to lead. The Senate, eager to re-establish the illusion of the Republic's restoration, gladly accepted Octavian's offer. However, Octavian's gesture was more than just a symbol. It was a masterstroke of political manipulation. While publicly relinquishing power, he was granted even more authority under the guise of Republican restoration, thus marking the beginning of his reign as princeps, the first among equals. On the surface, the Republic had been restored, but Octavian had cleverly secured the loyalty of Rome's elite. His offer to give up power masked his true control, ensuring he remained Rome's unchallenged leader. The Senate's decision to grant him authority showed their desire for stability after years of civil war, but it was clear to those in power that Octavian was in charge. He had successfully created the appearance of a republic while quietly becoming its most powerful figure. In the eyes of Rome, he was still Octavian, the heir to Caesar, but now his name was Augustus, the revered and untouchable leader. The Senate's approval gave Octavian the legitimacy he needed to consolidate his position. The facade of a restored republic gave comfort to those who feared the rise of another dictator. Yet Octavian was wise enough to understand that appearances could be deceiving. The power he wielded was far greater than the Senate understood, and soon it would become clear that his leadership would be absolute. The Republic was gone. What followed was something entirely new, an empire under the rule of one man, Augustus. Despite his newfound power, Augustus did not flaunt it. Instead, he carefully built an image of humility and public service. By offering to step down, he won the favor of Rome's elite, ensuring his position as the undisputed leader while maintaining the support of the people. Augustus's mastery of perception allowed him to maintain a delicate balance between autocracy and republicanism, forever changing the course of Roman history. This was not a return to the old ways, but the beginning of a new Roman world under Augustus. Despite the outward appearance of republican restoration, Augustus worked tirelessly to solidify his hold on Rome's military and political apparatus. While he may have relinquished formal power, the military remained firmly under his control. As the commander-in-chief, Augustus controlled the legions, ensuring that the loyalty of Rome's army was directly tied to his leadership. With control over the military, Augustus was in a unique position to suppress any opposition that threatened his authority. His power was not just political, it was deeply entrenched in Rome's ability to wage war and maintain order. Augustus also ensured his control extended beyond the military. He took responsibility for the provinces, directly overseeing regions critical to Rome's security and prosperity. By managing the most important regions himself, he isolated his rivals and prevented any senator from gaining enough power to challenge his rule. This move secured his dominance across the entire empire, making sure that every region remained loyal to him. His influence extended far beyond the Senate, weaving a web of political and military control that was nearly impossible to unravel. As the undisputed master of Rome, Augustus made use of a variety of legal and diplomatic tools to further cement his rule. While the Senate still existed, its power was now symbolic rather than functional. Augustus pushed through reforms that placed his supporters in key positions of authority, ensuring that any opposition within the Senate would be neutralized. Despite the Senate's continued existence, it was now a rubber stamp for Augustus's decisions, serving more as a ceremonial body than a true governing force. But Augustus didn't rely solely on military power to maintain his rule. He understood the importance of public perception, and so he skillfully crafted an image of a leader who was both benevolent and humble. By holding traditional Roman values such as family and religion in high esteem, Augustus won the hearts of the people. He portrayed himself as a savior of Rome who had brought peace and stability after decades of civil war. His power, though absolute, was presented as a necessary force to preserve Rome's greatness. Augustus had learned from his predecessors that power was not merely about dominance, it was about control over every facet of the empire. By consolidating power through military control, political manipulation, and public relations, Augustus built an empire that was under his unchallenged authority. He had achieved what no one before him could. He had become the absolute ruler of Rome, and no one was willing to oppose him. In addition to his role as princeps, Augustus was granted the right to hold tribunician power, one of the most influential political offices in Rome. This gave him the ability to propose laws, veto decisions, and defend the rights of the common people, thus increasing his control over the political process. The power of the tribune was enormous, and by holding this office, Augustus ensured that no senator or noble could pass laws that conflicted with his interests. His tribunician power allowed him to present himself as a protector of the people, though in reality, it was just another tool for consolidating his authority. In 19 BC, Augustus also took on the title of consul, the highest elected position in Rome, further cementing his control over Rome's military and political decision-making. Though he formally held the office for just a short time, his ability to influence the Senate was unparalleled. As consul, Augustus wielded the power to control Rome's military, issue decrees, and make key decisions about foreign policy. Through the consulship, Augustus ensured that his political dominance was unquestioned, while also reinforcing the illusion of the Republic's system of checks and balances. With tribunician and consular powers in his hands, Augustus had total control over both lawmaking and military affairs. His ability to propose laws and veto others gave him a stranglehold on the legislative process. More importantly, by holding these offices, he could avoid the normal political processes that might have curbed his power. Augustus was no longer just the first among equals. He was the lawgiver, the military commander, and the ultimate decision-maker in all matters of Roman governance. The concentration of these powers into Augustus's hands allowed him to bypass the need for cooperation with the Senate. Though he maintained the facade of the Republic, Augustus had made it clear that his rule was not dependent on the Senate's approval. He controlled the state's military and political machinery, making him the de facto ruler of Rome. His powers as tribune and consul meant that he could dictate Rome's laws and military actions without needing anyone else's consent. Augustus had turned the traditional systems of power into instruments of his own rule. These powers, however, were carefully balanced by Augustus to maintain the appearance of a republic. He never held the title of dictator, and he allowed the Senate to continue its ceremonial role. But in reality, the Senate's role had become mostly symbolic. Augustus was not only the military and political leader of Rome, he had become the embodiment of Roman authority, whose will was law. Through the combined powers of tribune and consul, Augustus had ensured that no one else could challenge his position at the top. In 12 BC, Augustus took on the title of Pontifex Maximus, the highest religious office in Rome. This was a significant move, as it allowed Augustus to control Rome's religious institutions and further intertwine his political power with religious authority. As the head of the Roman state religion, Augustus could oversee the worship of the gods, maintain religious rituals, and influence the moral fabric of Roman society. By holding this office, Augustus made it clear that his rule was not only political, but also spiritual, giving him influence over the hearts and minds of the people. The position of Pontifex Maximus was vital for Augustus, as it reinforced his status as Rome's leader. Religion played a central role in Roman life, and by controlling its highest office, Augustus could use religious symbolism to strengthen his own power. His role as the chief priest allowed him to legitimize his rule and present himself as divinely ordained to lead Rome. In a city where public support was often swayed by religious sentiment, this position gave Augustus an unmatched degree of influence over Rome's citizens. With the title of Pontifex Maximus, Augustus also undertook religious reforms, restoring old temples and building new ones in honor of the gods. He used these actions to emphasize his commitment to Rome's traditional values, portraying himself as a pious leader who respected Rome's ancient customs. By connecting his political leadership with religious observance, Augustus made it clear that his reign was not merely a matter of earthly authority, it was sanctioned by the gods themselves. Augustus's role as Pontifex Maximus also had practical implications. It allowed him to control the priesthoods and the wealth associated with religious offices. He could use his control over religious practices to reward loyal supporters and punish those who opposed him. His influence over Rome's religious institutions allowed him to further centralize his power, ensuring that no other political figure could rise to challenge his dominance. This religious authority not only enhanced Augustus's position in Rome, but also solidified his image as the father of the empire. His rule was not merely political or military, it was a divinely sanctioned governance that connected him to the gods. By merging the religious and political spheres, Augustus created an aura of invincibility that would last long after his death. In 2 BC, the Senate honored Augustus with the title Pater Patriae, or Father of the Country, solidifying his paternal image over Rome. This title marked a shift in Augustus's relationship with the Roman people. While he had always been seen as the protector of Rome, this formal recognition made him the father figure of the entire empire. By giving him this title, the Senate acknowledged Augustus's unparalleled authority, not just as a ruler, but as the protector and father of the Roman state. The title Pater Patriae was significant because it elevated Augustus above mere political leadership. It portrayed him as a symbol of Rome's unity and strength. He was no longer just the ruler of an empire. He was the embodiment of Rome itself. This recognition further cemented his authority and allowed him to present himself as the moral and paternal figure of the empire, protecting not just its laws but its very soul. For the people of Rome, Augustus was no longer a man. They saw him as the father who had restored Rome to greatness. Augustus carefully cultivated this image of paternalism throughout his reign, framing himself as the embodiment of Roman values. He presented himself as a man who had sacrificed for the good of the empire and who was deeply concerned with its welfare. By promoting this fatherly image, Augustus ensured that his leadership would be viewed as benevolent and necessary, rather than authoritarian. The title Pater Patriae was not just a political honor, it was a tool for solidifying his emotional connection with Rome's citizens, gave him the moral authority to make decisions for the good of the empire, and it ensured that his legacy would be seen as one of care and responsibility. The honor bestowed upon Augustus by the Senate in 2 BC was a testament to his extraordinary skill in shaping public perception. By becoming the father of the country, Augustus had not only secured his position as Rome's leader, he had solidified his place in history as the man who restored and redefined the Roman Empire. Augustus's reign brought about an unprecedented period of peace that would last for 2 centuries. Known as the Pax Romana, this era marked the transformation of Rome from a republic torn by civil war into a stable empire. Under Augustus, the Roman world was unified under one ruler, bringing an end to the brutal conflicts that had ravaged the republic for years. The peace allowed trade, culture, and ideas to flourish across the empire, making it one of the most prosperous periods in history. Augustus's ability to maintain this peace was a monumental achievement, as it allowed Rome to focus its energies on expansion and consolidation rather than internal strife. But Pax Romana wasn't simply about the absence of war. It was about creating a system of governance that could endure. Augustus skillfully built a framework of laws, military organization, and provincial oversight that ensured peace would be sustainable. His control over the military, backed by his ability to manage Rome's vast provinces, ensured that any potential uprising was swiftly and decisively handled. Under his leadership, Rome experienced an era where the threat of civil war seemed distant, and the empire was allowed to grow in strength and size. The social stability that Pax Romana brought allowed the Roman people to experience a better quality of life. With peace came economic prosperity, and with that came a rise in trade, wealth, and infrastructure. Cities across the empire flourished, and the common people benefited from the order Augustus had imposed. Roads were safe to travel, markets thrived, and a sense of security permeated Roman life. This peace allowed Augustus to be hailed as a savior of Rome, a leader who had provided stability in a time of turmoil. Though Augustus faced several challenges during his reign, including external threats and internal unrest, his strategic vision and leadership saw the empire through. He understood that the key to maintaining peace lay not just in military might, but in controlling the hearts and minds of the people. By fostering loyalty to the emperor and ensuring that the empire's needs were met, Augustus created a system that worked for both the elite and the common people. His creation of Pax Romana remains one of his greatest legacies, providing a model of imperial peace that endured far beyond his reign. The success of Pax Romana cannot be overstated. It was the foundation upon which the entire Roman Empire would stand for centuries. For Augustus, the peace he created was not just a political achievement, it was a lasting testament to his ability to lead Rome into a golden age of stability and prosperity. While Augustus was celebrated for establishing peace, his reign also saw an expansion of Rome's borders. The Roman Empire reached its greatest territorial extent during his time, as Augustus's military campaigns extended the empire into new lands. He successfully annexed Egypt in 30 BC after the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, securing the wealth and resources of one of the most fertile and strategic regions in the Mediterranean. With Egypt now under his control, Augustus ensured that Rome would never again face a shortage of grain, which was crucial to feeding the population. In addition to Egypt, Augustus expanded Rome's borders into Dalmatia, modern-day Croatia, and parts of Hispania, Spain. These territories were vital for securing Rome's trade routes and access to resources. Augustus's military campaigns were not always without conflict, but his strategies were effective in ensuring Roman dominance across the Mediterranean. He also undertook numerous campaigns to secure the empire's frontiers, ensuring that the Roman influence was felt from the Atlantic coast of Europe to the sands of Egypt. However, not all military campaigns were successful. Augustus faced setbacks in Germania, where the Germanic tribes proved resilient in resisting Roman expansion. The most significant defeat occurred in the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD, where 3 Roman legions were ambushed and destroyed. This defeat marked the end of Roman ambitions to expand into Germania, and Augustus wisely chose not to push further into the region. Instead, he focused on consolidating Rome's power in the regions where it was already strong, securing the empire's borders against future threats. Despite these setbacks, Augustus's military achievements cannot be underestimated. His ability to manage the empire's vast armies and secure its borders ensured that the Roman Empire remained a dominant force in the Mediterranean world for centuries. His careful balancing of military conquest and strategic retreats allowed him to expand Rome's influence while ensuring the stability of the empire. Augustus understood that military power was essential for peace, but it was his careful diplomacy and military foresight that allowed him to maintain that peace. Through Augustus's military campaigns, Rome solidified its position as the preeminent power in the ancient world. His reign brought both territorial expansion and a firm grasp on the empire's security, ensuring that future generations would live under the shadow of Roman might. Augustus's military prowess not only expanded Rome's borders, but also set the stage for the future expansion and domination of the empire for centuries to come. While Augustus was a master of military strategy, he also understood the importance of diplomacy in maintaining the stability of the empire. One of the key elements of his rule was the use of client kings and diplomatic relationships to ensure the loyalty of Rome's peripheral territories. Augustus used the system of client states, where local rulers maintained control of their regions in exchange for loyalty to Rome, to reduce the need for direct Roman intervention. This system allowed Rome to maintain peace and stability in distant territories while avoiding the cost and manpower of direct military conquest. By establishing client kings in various regions, Augustus ensured that Rome's influence stretched beyond its direct borders. These client rulers were often installed from among the local elites and were bound to Rome by treaties, tribute payments, and military alliances. In return, they were allowed to maintain a degree of autonomy in governing their own territories. This system allowed Augustus to focus on consolidating power within the core of the empire while maintaining influence over a vast network of client states. Diplomatic relations were also crucial to Augustus's strategy for maintaining peace. He skillfully navigated the delicate balance of power between Rome and its allies, ensuring that any potential threats were kept at bay. By forging alliances with powerful neighboring kingdoms, such as the Kingdom of Parthia, Augustus secured the eastern frontier of the empire. These alliances ensured that Rome could focus its military efforts on more pressing concerns, rather than dealing with constant threats from external forces. The system of client states and diplomacy allowed Augustus to project Roman power without the need for direct military occupation. This strategy was especially effective in regions that were difficult to control through traditional military means, such as the remote areas of North Africa and the Eastern Mediterranean. By establishing strong diplomatic ties and fostering loyalty through client rulers, Augustus created a network of allied territories that helped strengthen the empire's borders. Through his diplomatic skills, Augustus was able to expand Rome's influence without overextending its resources. His use of client kings and strategic alliances ensured that Rome could maintain its dominance while keeping military expenditures to a minimum. Augustus's diplomatic savvy was one of the key reasons for the long-lasting stability of the Roman Empire during his reign, and his methods would be emulated by future emperors. One of the cornerstones of Augustus's rule was his ambitious building program, which transformed both the city of Rome and the empire as a whole. Augustus understood that a strong empire required more than just military power. It needed infrastructure that could support its vast population and enable economic growth. He famously boasted that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, referring to the extensive building projects that reshaped the city's landscape. Augustus rebuilt temples, constructed new public buildings, and commissioned impressive monuments, all of which contributed to Rome's grandeur and influence. Among the most important of Augustus's infrastructure projects were the roads and aqueducts that connected the empire. Roman roads were renowned for their durability and efficiency, allowing for rapid military mobilization and facilitating trade across the empire. The construction of aqueducts brought fresh water to the city of Rome, improving public health and sanitation. These engineering feats not only improved the quality of life for Romans, but also reinforced the empire's power and reach, making it easier for Augustus to maintain control over his vast territories. Augustus also focused on the development of Rome's public spaces. He built new forums, expanded the Senate House, and created beautiful public squares where citizens could gather for political, social, and religious activities. The iconic Pax, a monument dedicated to the peace Augustus had brought to the empire, was one of the most enduring symbols of his reign. Through these projects, Augustus sought to create a lasting legacy that would glorify both his leadership and the prosperity of the empire. Beyond the city of Rome, Augustus's building program extended throughout the empire. He ordered the construction of roads, bridges, and other infrastructure projects in provinces as far afield as Britain and Egypt. These projects helped integrate the empire, making it easier to transport goods, communicate, and maintain control over distant regions. Augustus's focus on infrastructure ensured that Rome remained a cohesive and powerful empire, able to maintain its influence over vast territories. Through his extensive building projects, Augustus left an indelible mark on the Roman world. His reign transformed Rome from a city of modest means into a magnificent capital of an empire that spanned continents. These projects not only served practical purposes, but also reinforced the power and grandeur of Augustus's rule. His infrastructure initiatives became one of the lasting symbols of his reign, showcasing his vision for a unified, powerful, and prosperous empire. Under Augustus's reign, Rome experienced a cultural renaissance that would leave an enduring legacy for centuries. Augustus understood the power of culture to unite the empire and legitimize his rule, and he actively promoted the arts, literature, and architecture. One of the most significant cultural achievements of this period was the rise of great Roman poets such as Virgil, Horace, and Ovid, whose works would become foundational to Western literature. Virgil's Aeneid, an epic poem that glorified Rome's origins, was commissioned by Augustus himself to promote Roman values and the legitimacy of his rule. Augustus also promoted the visual arts, commissioning sculptures, reliefs, and monuments that celebrated his reign and the peace he had brought to the empire. The images of Augustus on coins, statues, and monuments helped to reinforce his image as a strong and benevolent ruler. These cultural symbols were not just for decoration, they were tools of propaganda, carefully crafted to depict Augustus as the rightful ruler of Rome and the man who had restored order after years of turmoil. The cultural flourishing during Augustus's reign was not limited to literature and the arts. It also included the revitalization of Roman religion and civic life. Augustus restored and expanded many of Rome's temples and religious sites, promoting the idea that his reign was divinely sanctioned. He also emphasized the importance of traditional Roman values such as family, piety, and loyalty to the state. Through these efforts, Augustus sought to create a cultural identity that united Romans under the banner of his rule. The period of Augustus saw a transformation in Rome's intellectual and cultural life. Scholars, philosophers, and artists found new opportunities to express themselves, and their work would inspire future generations. The cultural achievements of Augustus's reign helped to shape the identity of the Roman Empire, influencing its literature, art, and philosophy for centuries to come. Through his support of the arts, Augustus cemented his place not just as a political leader, but as a patron of Roman culture. Augustus's cultural policies were instrumental in creating a sense of shared identity and pride across the empire. His reign saw the flourishing of art, literature, and architecture, which helped to solidify his power and the stability of the Roman Empire. The cultural achievements of his era continue to be admired and studied today, serving as a testament to Augustus's vision of an empire built not just on military might, but also on cultural greatness. Augustus inherited a Roman state that was often inefficient in managing its vast resources. The taxation system was outdated, and many provinces were burdened with corrupt practices that drained the empire's coffers. To secure a stable revenue stream, Augustus implemented comprehensive tax reforms that helped streamline and standardize the process of tax collection across the empire. His reforms included a census to accurately assess the wealth of the population, ensuring that taxes were more equitably distributed. This system, which placed more power in the hands of provincial governors, not only reduced corruption, but also increased the efficiency of tax collection, providing the empire with the funds it needed for its military and public works. The revenue reforms were not only about increasing the flow of money into Rome's treasury, but also about securing stability. By adjusting taxes according to the economic conditions of different regions, Augustus made sure that the burden on each province was fair. This helped to prevent unrest, as the people saw the Roman government as a system that could be trusted to provide for their needs. Augustus used the new taxation model to fund the growing infrastructure of the empire, including roads, aqueducts, and public buildings, making sure that the benefits of taxation were felt throughout the empire. These tax reforms were one of the key ways Augustus solidified his control over the empire, balancing the needs of the military with the welfare of the citizens. Another important reform was the establishment of a permanent state treasury, known as the fiscus. This financial institution allowed Augustus to centralize the empire's wealth, making it easier to direct funds where they were most needed. By managing the empire's finances more efficiently, Augustus was able to fund the military and stabilize the empire, ensuring that no province was left behind in the pursuit of Roman glory. The new revenue system, along with Augustus's careful attention to the empire's finances, helped Rome thrive under his reign, setting a foundation for centuries of imperial rule. Augustus also understood that taxation was more than just a means of funding the empire. It was a tool for maintaining loyalty and order. By ensuring that all provinces paid a fair share, he eliminated the economic inequalities that had fueled unrest in the past. The efficiency of the system made it clear that Augustus was a leader who could provide stability, and in a time of uncertainty, that was worth more than any military victory. The reforms he implemented would become a model for future rulers, showing that sound governance was just as important as military conquest. The fiscal reforms that Augustus introduced were critical not only to the empire's survival, but to its prosperity. By balancing fairness and efficiency, he transformed the empire's financial system into one that could sustain its vast expansion. These reforms were a vital part of his legacy, showing that a leader's success depended not just on military might, but on the ability to govern with foresight and fairness. Augustus recognized that a strong empire needed a well-organized and efficient bureaucracy to support its growth and stability. To address the disorganization of Rome's administration, he created a professional civil service, recruiting skilled individuals who were both loyal and competent. By establishing a bureaucracy that was separate from the political system, Augustus ensured that the administration could function independently, free from the corruption that had plagued Rome in previous years. This shift was a crucial step in moving away from the old republican systems where personal connections often took precedence over qualifications. The civil service that Augustus created was based on merit rather than birthright. He recruited individuals from all social classes, including the plebeians, provided they demonstrated the necessary skills and loyalty to Rome. By giving opportunities to people based on merit, Augustus built a more efficient and effective administrative structure. These reforms allowed Rome's vast empire to be governed in a way that was more rational and methodical, making it easier to manage its provinces and oversee the day-to-day operations of the government. Alongside the creation of a professional civil service, Augustus also restructured Rome's provincial governance. Governors of the provinces were given more authority and were expected to act as direct representatives of the emperor. This system helped reduce corruption and inefficiency, as provincial governors were now more accountable to Augustus than to local elites. By ensuring that the administration was centralized, Augustus reduced the chances of rebellion and unrest in the provinces. His administrative reforms not only helped stabilize the empire, but also made it easier for future emperors to maintain control over Rome's far-flung territories. Augustus also understood the importance of the legal and bureaucratic systems in maintaining order. He established the cursus publicus, a state-run postal and courier service which improved communication across the empire. This allowed for the swift transmission of orders from Rome to the provinces and ensured that the emperor could remain informed about the state of his empire. The civil service reforms were essential in transforming Rome from a republic with a fractured government into a centralized empire with an efficient administrative system that could handle its vast size. The professionalization of the Roman bureaucracy became one of Augustus's most enduring legacies. His reforms laid the groundwork for a government that would function with greater efficiency and fairness, both of which were essential for maintaining the stability of the empire. The civil service he created provided a model for future empires, proving that a well-organized and efficient government was crucial for long-lasting success. One of Augustus's most important reforms was his overhaul of Roman law, which was crucial in shaping the moral and social fabric of the empire. Augustus believed that the strength of Rome relied not just on its military might, but on the moral integrity of its citizens. To restore traditional Roman values, he implemented a series of laws that regulated marriage, family life, and social conduct. These laws, known as the Leges Julia, sought to encourage marriage and childbirth among the Roman elite and to discourage adultery, infidelity, and other behaviors that were seen as undermining Roman society. Through these legal reforms, Augustus attempted to create a more moral and disciplined Roman population. He enacted laws that penalized men who did not marry and father children, while rewarding those who married and produced offspring. Augustus also created laws to protect women's dignity and marriage rights, including the Lex Julia de Maritandis Ordinibus, which restricted the marriage of the upper class to those of lower birth. These laws reflected Augustus's belief that the moral decline of Rome had contributed to its fall from greatness, and he sought to reverse this by shaping Roman society from the inside out. The legal reforms also addressed issues of public morality. Augustus passed laws that criminalized adultery and sexual immorality, which he saw as detrimental to the stability of the family unit and the integrity of Roman society. The emperor, now the moral guardian of the empire, used these laws as a tool to strengthen his rule and to remind Romans of their traditional values. His reforms were not without opposition, but they set a new standard for Roman society, one that would continue to influence the empire for centuries. In addition to his laws on social conduct, Augustus also reformed Rome's criminal and civil law systems, creating a more organized and standardized legal framework. By making the legal system more transparent and accessible, Augustus ensured that all Roman citizens had a sense of fairness under the law, further solidifying his reputation as a just ruler. These legal reforms were crucial in helping Augustus maintain control over the empire, as they gave him a means of regulating society without resorting to constant military force. Through his legal reforms, Augustus not only restored Roman values, but also ensured the stability of his empire. By regulating marriage, family life, and public morality, he created a society that was more disciplined, orderly, and loyal to Rome. These reforms contributed to the Pax Romana, the peace and stability that would define his reign and last for centuries. Augustus's laws were as much a tool of governance as his military campaigns, ensuring that the empire's moral fabric was as strong as its political and military might. He established a professional standing army, ensuring that soldiers were well-trained, disciplined, and loyal to Rome and to him personally. Before Augustus, Roman soldiers often served for short periods and were more concerned with their own personal gains. Augustus changed that by instituting fixed terms of service, regular pay, and a clear chain of command. This created a permanent, loyal military force that could maintain peace across the empire and quickly respond to threats. The reforms didn't stop there. Augustus also increased the size of the Roman army, creating legions that were stationed in strategic regions across the empire. His military reforms ensured that Rome was prepared to face any external threat, whether from rebellious provinces or foreign invaders. Augustus also introduced the Praetorian Guard, an elite group of soldiers tasked with protecting the emperor. The creation of this guard solidified Augustus's control over the army and prevented any challenges to his rule from within the military itself. In addition to reorganization, Augustus focused on the loyalty of his soldiers. He understood that a well-compensated army was more likely to remain loyal to its commander. Thus, he ensured that soldiers were paid regular wages and given rewards for their service. This not only incentivized loyalty, but also made the army an institution that could maintain the stability of the empire. By rewarding veterans with land and money, Augustus created a strong bond between the military and the state, making it clear that loyalty to the emperor was the key to career success. Augustus's military reforms were also about creating a clear distinction between the military and the political sphere. By placing the army directly under his control, he ensured that no rival general could use the military to challenge his authority. The structure of the Roman military became a reflection of Augustus's centralized power. He removed any possibility of military commanders rising up against him, ensuring that the only true loyalty in Rome was to the emperor himself. Through these military reforms, Augustus transformed the Roman army into an instrument of imperial power and stability. The army was no longer a loose collection of soldiers. It was a professional, loyal, and well-organized force that served Augustus's vision for the Roman Empire. These changes ensured that the Roman military could not only defend the empire's borders, but also help Augustus maintain his rule, making the Roman Empire the most powerful entity in the ancient world. Under the Republic, provinces were often governed by individuals with personal ambitions, leading to corruption, instability, and sometimes rebellion. Augustus, ever the master strategist, reorganized the provinces into two categories: senatorial and imperial. The senatorial provinces were governed by senators, while the imperial provinces were directly controlled by Augustus himself, with military governors overseeing these regions. This division allowed Augustus to maintain tight control over the most volatile regions while granting more autonomy to the less troublesome areas. This new structure of governance helped to stabilize the empire by preventing any single governor from gaining too much power. By placing the most strategic provinces under imperial control, Augustus ensured that the military would remain loyal to him. It also gave him direct control over the frontier regions where the potential for rebellion was greatest. His careful selection of governors, who were often chosen based on loyalty and competence rather than political connections, ensured that Rome's vast territories could be managed efficiently. Augustus also made it a priority to build stronger relationships with provincial leaders and local elites. He understood that in order for his empire to thrive, he needed to have the support of the people living in the provinces. By promoting local leaders and allowing them to maintain some degree of power, he helped reduce the risk of rebellion. Augustus's diplomacy and tact ensured that even distant provinces were content with Roman rule, which further reduced the need for military intervention. Through his reorganization of the provinces, Augustus created a more stable and efficient empire. Governors were held accountable for their actions, and those who misused their power faced harsh penalties. The reforms ensured that the people of the provinces felt a connection to the central government and were less likely to revolt. Augustus's careful management of Rome's provinces helped to keep the empire united, even as it expanded to its greatest territorial limits. By dividing the empire into senatorial and imperial provinces, Augustus created a system that was easier to manage and more resistant to corruption. His reforms allowed Rome to flourish, ensuring that the vast empire could remain unified under a single leader. This system of governance would be one of the key reasons why Augustus's empire would survive for centuries, long after his death. Augustus understood that for his rule to be secure, it needed not only political and military power, but also divine legitimacy. To reinforce his position, he promoted the idea of his divine ancestry, linking himself to the gods. He claimed descent from Venus, one of the most powerful deities in the Roman pantheon, through the legendary hero Aeneas. This connection to Venus was not just a claim of lineage, but a strategic move to position himself as divinely chosen to lead Rome. By invoking the gods, Augustus effectively elevated his status beyond that of a mere mortal leader, positioning himself as the favored of the gods and ensuring his legitimacy in the eyes of the people. The promotion of his divine status was not just a matter of family pride, it was a calculated political move. By presenting himself as part of a divine bloodline, Augustus established a sense of destiny for Rome under his rule. The belief that he was connected to the gods created a deep sense of reverence among the Roman people, who viewed him as the protector of their empire. This divine connection wasn't merely a personal claim, it became a symbol of stability and strength for the Roman state. Augustus's reign was now seen as divinely ordained, ensuring his authority was accepted without question. To solidify his divine status, Augustus also tied his rule to religious festivals and ceremonies, making his divine connection part of the fabric of Roman religious life. Temples were dedicated in his honor, and statues were erected to commemorate his link to the gods. This constant reinforcement of his divine connection worked to unify the people, creating a shared belief in the sacred nature of his leadership. Over time, this divine image became inseparable from Augustus's identity, ensuring that his rule was not just political, but spiritual. This image of divinity was crucial in maintaining the loyalty of the army, the Senate, and the people. Soldiers who were accustomed to following strong and charismatic leaders now saw Augustus as more than just a military commander. They saw him as the embodiment of Roman strength, blessed by the gods. His divine status was also essential in ensuring his power remained uncontested, as it provided a shield against rivals who would question his legitimacy. Through his divine association, Augustus ensured that his reign was more than a passing phase. It became a myth that would shape the future of the empire. In the years that followed, the idea of Augustus as a divine ruler became ingrained in Roman culture. His divine status was passed down through the centuries, with future emperors adopting similar titles and claims of divine lineage. The establishment of Augustus's divinity set the stage for the imperial cult that would become a defining feature of Roman rule, with the emperor revered not just as a leader, but as a god. To reinforce his divinity and secure his rule, Augustus established the imperial cult, which elevated the emperor to the status of a god. This cult was not just about personal worship of Augustus, it was about unifying the empire under a common religious belief. Augustus understood the power of religion in binding people together, and by instituting the worship of the emperor, he created a unifying force that spread throughout the vast territories of Rome. Temples dedicated to Augustus were built in every province, and citizens were expected to pay homage to the emperor as a divine figure, reinforcing his political authority. The imperial cult also served as a tool to strengthen Augustus's control over his subjects. By promoting the emperor's divinity, he ensured that loyalty to him became a religious duty, tying the well-being of the empire to his personal rule. Those who were loyal to Augustus were seen as aligned with the gods, while those who rebelled against him were perceived as enemies of Rome's divine order. The imperial cult helped to maintain unity within the empire, as it was a belief that transcended local customs and united the diverse peoples of Rome under the banner of Augustus's rule. The practice of worshiping Augustus as a god wasn't limited to Rome alone. It spread throughout the empire, from Egypt to Spain. Local temples and altars were dedicated to Augustus, and his image appeared on coins, reinforcing his divine presence in every corner of the empire. This widespread worship was a powerful tool for Augustus, as it allowed him to project authority over vast territories without relying solely on military might. Augustus understood the power of imagery and symbolism in shaping public perception. To project his image and cement his authority, he used art and architecture as tools of propaganda. Monuments, coins, and public works were not just decorations. They were visual representations of his achievements and his divine right to rule. Augustus's image appeared on countless coins, showing him as both a military leader and a divine figure, reinforcing his dual role as protector and ruler. These coins circulated throughout the empire, making Augustus's image familiar to every Roman, from the highest senator to the humblest citizen. One of Augustus's most notable architectural achievements was the building of the Pax, altar of peace, which commemorated the peace he had brought to the empire. The altar, decorated with intricate reliefs, depicted Augustus's victories, his relationship with the gods, and the prosperity of Rome under his rule. The Pax was not just a religious monument, it was a declaration of Augustus's power and his divine favor. It served as a constant reminder to the Roman people that Augustus was not just their ruler, he was the embodiment of peace, prosperity, and divine will. Augustus's building program also included the restoration and expansion of temples, the construction of new public buildings, and the development of grand forums. These public works were not just for practical purposes. They were designed to glorify Augustus's reign and demonstrate his commitment to the welfare of Rome. The grandeur of these buildings served to remind Romans of the greatness of their empire and the leadership of Augustus. By linking his image to these monumental structures, Augustus ensured that his legacy would endure for generations. One of the most unique aspects of Augustus's rule was his use of his family to project an image of moral virtue. Augustus carefully cultivated the image of his family as paragons of Roman values, using them as models for the Roman people to emulate. He emphasized the importance of family life, virtue, and modesty, often highlighting the example set by his wife, Livia, and his daughter, Julia. Augustus portrayed himself as the protector of traditional Roman values, positioning his family as the embodiment of those ideals. Augustus's promotion of his family's virtues went beyond mere political maneuvering. By elevating the image of his family, he created a moral framework for Rome's citizens to follow. His children, especially his daughter Julia, were seen as symbols of Roman virtue, though Julia's later actions would complicate this image. Augustus used his family to reinforce his message of moral integrity and stability, showing that the emperor and his household were above reproach. This allowed him to position himself as a paternal figure, not just for Rome's elite, but for the common people as well. The emphasis on family values became a key part of Augustus's propaganda. He passed laws that encouraged marriage, childbearing, and the maintenance of traditional Roman family structures. These laws were intended to promote a moral order that Augustus believed was crucial for the stability of the empire. By portraying his own family as a model of these values, he encouraged the Roman people to uphold similar standards in their own lives. The idea was simple. If the emperor's family was virtuous, then the people of Rome should follow suit. Despite the idealized image of his family, there were complications. Augustus's daughter Julia was involved in scandals that threatened the carefully crafted image of his household. Her behavior, which included adulterous affairs, was a blow to Augustus's attempts to present his family as morally exemplary. However, Augustus's ability to navigate this personal crisis and maintain his public image shows his political skill. He responded by exiling Julia and reaffirming his commitment to moral governance, proving that no one, not even his own flesh and blood, was above the law. In the end, Augustus's use of family as moral exemplars was a powerful tool in shaping Roman society. It reinforced his message of traditional Roman values, which he believed were essential for the empire's success. By portraying himself and his family as the epitome of Roman virtue, Augustus cemented his position as the moral guardian of Rome, reinforcing the idea that his rule was not just political, but a force for moral restoration. Augustus understood that culture was a powerful tool for shaping public perception and reinforcing his rule. One of his key strategies was his patronage of literature, particularly the works of poets like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid. Augustus provided financial support to these poets, commissioning works that celebrated the greatness of Rome and, by extension, his reign. Virgil's Aeneid, an epic poem that traced Rome's legendary origins, was a direct attempt to link Augustus's rule to the divine and to promote the idea that Rome was destined for greatness under his leadership. Virgil's work glorified Augustus as a hero chosen by the gods to lead Rome to prosperity. Horace, another poet favored by Augustus, wrote odes that praised the emperor's military victories and the peace he had brought to the empire. His poetry, while more personal in tone, reflected the general sentiment of the Roman people, who viewed Augustus's reign as a time of peace and stability. Horace's work celebrated Augustus's role in restoring order after years of civil war, making him a cultural figure whose words reinforced the emperor's message. Through his support of poets like Horace and Virgil, Augustus created a literary legacy that not only glorified his reign, but also helped to define the cultural identity of the Roman Empire. Ovid, while not always in line with Augustus's moral reforms, also benefited from imperial patronage. His works, such as the Metamorphoses, celebrated Roman mythology and the transformation of individuals, a theme that resonated with Augustus's own image as the restorer of Rome. However, Ovid's personal life would eventually clash with Augustus's moral values, leading to his exile. Despite Ovid's eventual fall from favor, Augustus's patronage of literature during the early part of his reign helped shape the literary culture of Rome and ensured that his achievements would be immortalized in poetic form. Through his patronage of literature, Augustus ensured that the cultural narrative of Rome was shaped to reflect his values and achievements. The works of Virgil, Horace, and Ovid became part of the fabric of Roman identity, and their portrayal of Augustus as a heroic figure reinforced his image as a leader who had brought Rome to its golden age. Augustus used literature as both a tool of propaganda and a means of securing his legacy, knowing that the cultural influence of these works would outlast his reign. Augustus's patronage of the arts and literature helped to solidify his position as not just a political leader, but as a cultural icon. By supporting the works of these great poets, he ensured that his name would be celebrated long after his death. The literary legacy of Augustus continues to influence Western culture, making his reign one of the most significant periods in Roman history. The death of Augustus on August 19, AD 14, marked the end of an era for Rome. At the age of 75, he had ruled the empire for over 4 decades, and though his reign had brought peace and stability, the aging emperor was no longer the strong, commanding figure he once had been. In the final days of his life, Augustus was frail, his body weakened by the ravages of old age and years of ruling an empire. He was in the seaside town of Nola, surrounded by his trusted attendants and close family members, including his stepson and successor, Tiberius. The peaceful, idyllic setting stood in stark contrast to the immense power and authority Augustus had wielded during his life. As the end drew near, Augustus's health deteriorated rapidly. His breath came in shallow gasps, and his mind seemed to wander in and out of focus. Yet, in his final moments, Augustus displayed an awareness of the monumental event unfolding. It is said that, during his illness, Augustus showed an unusual amount of introspection, reflecting on his life and reign. On his sickbed, he turned to those around him, including Tiberius, and remarked bitterly, "I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble." These words, filled with both pride and regret, encapsulated the man who had rebuilt Rome and forged an empire, yet understood the weight of his actions and the complexities of his legacy. Those at his side were aware that the emperor's death would signal the end of the stability he had created. Tiberius, while his designated successor, could not escape the reality that his rule would forever be compared to Augustus's. Despite the inevitable succession, there was no mistaking the deep emotional bond between the two. Augustus had spent years preparing Tiberius for leadership, but the emotional toll of such an inheritance was immense. As Augustus's death approached, Tiberius remained at his side, his face a mask of concern and sorrow. The emperor's passing would not only end an era, but also signal the fragility of the empire's future. Augustus's last moments were not without a final act of leadership. As he lay dying, he asked those around him, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." These final words, like a performer bidding farewell to an audience, revealed his awareness of his role as both ruler and symbol. Augustus's life had been an act of grand design, an empire shaped in his image, and now, in his final moments, he knew that his legacy would outlast him. When he died, the streets of Rome were silent, as if the city itself mourned the loss of its father. Augustus had given the Roman people a legacy of peace, stability, and prosperity, Pax Romana. Yet, beneath the surface, many wondered if the empire would endure without the guiding hand of the man who had brought it into its golden age. His passing was a monumental event that echoed throughout the empire, and it was clear that nothing would ever be the same again. In a final act of reverence, Augustus was posthumously deified by the Senate, becoming a god in the Roman pantheon. This divine recognition was not merely a symbolic gesture, it was a political maneuver that cemented Augustus's place in Roman religion and history. By elevating him to divine status, the Senate ensured that Augustus's legacy would be forever intertwined with the gods. His deification provided the emperor with eternal power, not just over Rome, but over the hearts and minds of generations to come. Rome's first emperor had become a god, a protector not only of the empire, but of the very idea of Roman greatness itself. Before he died, Augustus carefully planned on who would succeed him. He had no biological heirs, but he had chosen Tiberius, his stepson, as his successor, cementing the foundation of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Tiberius, though a capable general, was not a popular figure, and his ascension to the throne was met with mixed reactions. Some viewed him as a necessary ruler, one who would maintain the peace Augustus had established, while others saw him as a man who would struggle to live up to his predecessor's legacy. Tiberius's rule began under the shadow of Augustus's monumental reign, and he quickly had to navigate the complex political terrain left behind. Augustus had left behind a well-organized system of governance, and Tiberius was determined to uphold it. He focused on consolidating his power, ensuring that the Senate and military were loyal to him. However, unlike Augustus, Tiberius lacked the charisma that had made his stepfather beloved. His reign, marked by suspicion, isolation, and a deepening paranoia, made it difficult for him to gain the trust of the Roman people. His decision to withdraw from public life and govern from the island of Capri only deepened his image as an aloof and distant ruler. Despite the challenges, Tiberius continued Augustus's policies, including maintaining the military reforms and ensuring the stability of the empire's borders. His leadership was characterized by cautious governance, and he focused on maintaining the peace Augustus had worked so hard to create. However, Tiberius's reign also highlighted the limits of Augustus's system. While the empire itself remained stable, the emperor's personal relationship with the people began to erode, as Tiberius struggled to present himself as the kind of leader the people had revered in Augustus. Despite the complexities of Tiberius's reign, the transition from Augustus to Tiberius marked the beginning of a dynasty that would rule Rome for over a century. The legacy of Augustus lived on, even if his direct heirs struggled to match his popularity or effectiveness. Augustus's careful succession planning ensured that the empire would continue to be led by his chosen family, securing the future of the empire he had built. The reforms Augustus introduced during his reign had a lasting impact on the Roman Empire, shaping its structure and functioning long after his death. His changes to the military, taxation, and governance systems ensured that Rome's vast territories were managed efficiently and peacefully. The professional standing army he established became a key component of Roman dominance, ensuring that Rome's military power was both effective and loyal. Augustus's military reforms remained in place, with future emperors relying on the army to maintain the empire's borders and protect its interests. The life and reign of Augustus continued to fascinate scholars, historians, and the general public. Contemporary interpretations of his rule offer a range of perspectives, from viewing him as a tyrant who destroyed the Roman Republic to hailing him as a visionary who restored Rome to greatness. Modern scholars have examined Augustus through the lens of power, propaganda, and governance, uncovering the complex ways in which he shaped the Roman world. His ability to manipulate public opinion, control the military, and create a lasting legacy has made him a subject of study for generations. In the media, Augustus is often portrayed as a figure of both political genius and ruthless ambition. Films, books, and documentaries have explored his life, emphasizing the tension between his public image as a benevolent ruler and his behind-the-scenes political maneuvering. These portrayals highlight the complexities of his character and the moral questions surrounding his rise to power. Augustus's story is one of triumph, but also of political ruthlessness, and modern interpretations often focus on the sacrifices he made to secure Rome's future. Augustus's legacy is also reflected in the modern understanding of empire building. His ability to manage a vast multicultural empire and maintain stability for centuries is often cited as one of the greatest achievements in history. Scholars continue to study his methods and governance, drawing lessons on leadership, power, and the complexities of managing a vast empire. Augustus's reign provides a model for understanding both the opportunities and challenges of empire building, making him a key figure in the study of political history. In contemporary media and scholarship, Augustus remains one of the most fascinating figures of ancient history. His reign is still dissected for its political, cultural, and military significance, and his story continues to inspire modern discussions on leadership, legacy, and empire. The lasting impact of Augustus's reign is undeniable, and his influence continues to shape how we understand the history of Rome and the foundations of modern governance.